Dr. Periq, am I saying that right?
You are.
Thank you. Do you know anybody who's against biomedical research?
Folks, what we just witnessed is the definition of what real leadership looks like in Washington. Senator John Kennedy just pulled back the curtain on one of the biggest taxpayer scams in the federal government, and that scam is hiding in plain sight at the NIH. Now, before we dive in, let me ask you a question. Do you think it's fair for your hard-earned money to go to research, only for the universities to blow it on yachts, sailboats, and shopping malls? No, me neither. But that's exactly what's happening, and Senator Kennedy is done playing nice.
I do not know anybody that's against biomedical research, but I know some.
That's like being against children, isn't it?
It is.
It's like being against world peace, isn't it?
It is.
It's like being against golden retrievers, isn't it?
There's some people that argue there.
Okay. Well, let's get that out of the way. I want to ask you about NIH. I love NIH. I think they do extraordinary work.
Yes, sir.
But isn't it a fact if NIH assigns way too much money for overhead, that money comes out of the basic research? Isn't that the case?
Senator, both those things are providing funds for research. And I agree with you that we need to make the administrative burden and the costs associated with it as low as possible, because we do want as much to go to research.
Well, why can't NIH live with 15% overhead?
Yeah. Senator, we have had a partnership that's been going on for 75 years in this country.
Yes, sir, but why can't NIH live with 15% overhead?
At this point, what that would do is actually turn institutions like the ones we've heard about here, it would actually make it to where they are laying off researchers and the support folks who are
Well, the Gates Foundation, when they make grants, they limit overhead to 10%, don't they?
They do, sir, but that is apples to oranges because they count different things.
And the Roberts Woods Johnson Foundation limits overhead to 12%, don't they?
They do. Again, apples to oranges because they count different things.
Isn't it a fact that the universities that receive the most money from NIH also have the biggest endowments?
I haven't checked that, but it probably is true, Senator. And I agree with you. There are challenges that we need to work on.
Well, let's take Harvard. 69 cents out of every dollar from NIH given to Harvard goes to overhead.
No, sir, it's 69 cents out of every $1.69. It's on top of, it's not within.
Okay.
Which is 1.6.
Let me ask you about one of the worst abuses I've ever seen. It was at Stanford.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Stanford was spending 74% of grants from NIH on overhead. Remember that?
I do, although I was in high school at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't. and they audited Stanford.
Yes, sir.
You remember what they found?
They bought a sailboat.
They found that Stanford was spending some of that money to pay the salaries of the employees at a Stanford-owned shopping center, didn't they?
I don't remember that part.
I do.
But yeah, okay.
They found that Stanford was spending some of that money that was supposed to go to research, ladies and gentlemen, to renovate the president's home.
Yes, sir.
Didn't they?
I believe so, Senator. Again.
And to renovate the vice provost's home, too, didn't they?
I believe you when you say that. Yes.
And they also charged, Stanford took NIH research money to help children and applied it to depreciation on a Stanford yacht, didn't they?
Yes, sir. Again, when I was in high school, sir.
Now, does NIH audit every year the way these grants are being spent?
They don't audit every year. There's a process for determining.
So they just trust the universities?
No, there's a negotiation that takes place between the NIH and the
Yes, sir, but if it's a 5-year grant.
Yes, sir.
And they agree on indirect costs, they don't audit it every year. What if the universities lie to them?
That is absolutely a possibility.
What does fungible mean?
Fungible means that you can move money from one place to another.
And money's fungible, isn't it?
Money is fungible.
I'm ready to have a productive discussion. I've got to go to another committee. Maybe you'll have it today. I haven't heard it.
Yes, sir.
What I've heard is the implication is that anybody who is against asking hard questions about the overhead and spending is against biomedical research.
I wouldn't say that, sir. I think you are a champion.
And I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I don't either.
But every penny that we spend on overhead that's not being audited, and you know as much as I do, Doc, that some of it is being abused, is money that is taken away from research. And that's just a fact.
Senator,
And if you care about this child here, and I know you do, we all do, then any money spent illegitimately on overhead to pay the salary of a professor in the humanities department at a university is coming out of her research. And it's not wrong to ask questions.
it is not wrong to ask
No,
questions.
it's not.
Not at all. And Senator, I think it's actually important to ask those questions and optimize the system.
And I don't understand why these universities cannot live on 15% overhead when Gates Foundation limits them to 10% and the Johnson Foundation limits them to 12%. I don't understand it. All of a sudden, if they don't get 35% overhead, civilization is going to melt.
It is important.
My
to
mama
have that
didn't
conversation.
raise a fool, and if she did, it was one of my brothers. I'm not buying that.
Senator,
Thank you.
I think it's worth the conversation.
The time has expired.
I went way over. I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I appreciate your indulgence.
Do you know anybody who's against biomedical research? It's like being against golden retrievers. That's right. Supporting biomedical research is common sense, but the left-wing academic elites have been gaming the system, wrapping themselves in lab coats while they plunder billions in overhead from the American people. And nobody holds them accountable. Let's be clear. Senator Kennedy supports research. We all do. We want sick kids to be cured. We want America to lead the world in science. But here's the kicker. Every dollar that doesn't go to actual science is a dollar ripped away from the next cancer breakthrough. That's not just waste, that's moral failure. Can you believe that? 69 cents out of every NIH dollar going to overhead at Harvard, a university with a $50+ billion endowment. You think they need our money to fix up the provost's mansion or buy new art for the quad? Let me ask you something else. Why does the Gates Foundation cap overhead at 10% and still get results? Why does the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation limit it to 12% and still fund great science? But somehow, if NIH cuts it below 35%, civilization melts down? Come on, y'all. All of a sudden, if they don't get 35% overhead, civilization is going to melt. Exactly. Senator Kennedy said it best. My mama didn't raise a fool. And neither did ours. We see through the lies. These universities are siphoning money that should go to cures, and instead they're throwing lavish parties, funding DI programs, and padding humanities salaries while kids suffer and research slows. Remember Stanford? NIH money for a sailboat, a yacht, employee salaries at a shopping mall, pre-depreciation expenses. That's not science, that's theft with a smile. And guess what? NIH doesn't even audit every year. They just trust the schools like it's 1950. Meanwhile, money is fungible. They move it around like a shell game, from labs to landscaping to leftist indoctrination programs. It is not wrong to ask questions, Kennedy says. No, it's not. Darn right, Senator. It's not just not wrong, it's our duty as American citizens to ask why our tax dollars are being hijacked by corrupt university bureaucrats who talk science by day and party on NIH-funded sailboats by night. So here's the deal. We need to back leaders like Senator Kennedy who aren't afraid to call out the deep state academia complex for what it is, a bloated, unaccountable monster that feeds on our money and our trust. Make your voice heard. Demand that NIH put a hard cap on overhead, 15% max audit the grants. Name the names. And fire anyone abusing the system. Because the next cure for cancer, Alzheimer's, or diabetes shouldn't be held back because some administrator needed a marble foyer in their office. United States, let's put America's money where it matters. In the lab, not the lounge. Like, share, and subscribe to the Constitution Corner, where we fight for truth, accountability, and the America our founders envisioned. God bless y'all, And God bless Senator John Kennedy.